The Minnesota Timberwolves just sent a message. No Anthony Edwards. No Mike Conley. No Julius Randle. And still, they beat the defending champions. Final score, Minnesota Timberwolves, Denver Nuggets, 106. In a preseason full of sloppy games and slow starts, this one stood out: fast pace, hot shooting, and unexpected chemistry. Because on a night when stars rested, the Wolves showed something bigger: depth, structure, and confidence that could make them one of the most dangerous teams in the Western Conference this season. It was the biggest preseason slate of the year so far, multiple games across the league. The Magic, Nets, Pelicans, and Knicks all grabbed wins, but all eyes were on Denver versus Minnesota, a rematch of last year's Western rivalry. Jokic's defending champs versus one of the few teams that actually challenged them in the playoffs. Only this time, Anthony Edwards was in street clothes. The Timberwolves' young star sat out for rest, along with veteran point guard Mike Conley and new addition Julius Randle, who was also being managed early. That meant Minnesota would need to rely on a mix of young players and new faces to carry the offense. Minnesota rolled out an unusual starting five. Rookie Rob Dillingham at point guard, Donte DiVincenzo in the backcourt, Nez Reid and Jaden McDaniels on the wings, and Rudy Gobert anchoring the middle. Meanwhile, Denver went nearly full strength. Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon, Cam Johnson, and Christian Braun all suited up and played in the first half. And off the bench came the new additions: Bruce Brown, Tim Hardaway Jr., and Jonas Valanciunas, all trying to find their roles in the Nuggets' revamped rotation. On paper, it looked like a mismatch, but from the opening tip, Minnesota's pace, energy, and ball movement caught Denver completely off guard. The Timberwolves opened the game firing. Their offense was fast, free-flowing, and fearless. Donte DiVincenzo played the perfect floor general role, dishing out 6 assists in limited minutes. He pushed the pace, attacked closeouts, and constantly found open shooters. Naz Reid and Jaden McDaniels were lights out from deep, hitting all their three-point attempts. And Rudy Gobert, he controlled the paint early, grabbing boards and setting monster screens to free up shooters. In the first 12 minutes alone, the Wolves dropped 40 points. That opening quarter wasn't just impressive, it was a statement that it showed that this team, even without their main scorers, could generate offense through movement, spacing, and smart execution. On the other side, Denver looked slow. The Nuggets' offense was fine. Jokic found cutters, Murray hit a few tough jumpers, and Gordon had his usual energy. But the defensive focus, it just wasn't there. They looked like a team still waking up from vacation. And in preseason, that's understandable. Veterans tend to ease into form. Still, the difference in energy was striking. Minnesota played like a group trying to earn minutes. Denver played like a group just trying to get through the night. Even when the Nuggets cut the lead from 12 points down to just 2 possessions midway through the second quarter, the Wolves never lost control. By halftime, Minnesota still held the lead, and the body language told the story. The Wolves were locked in. The Nuggets were just trying to survive. Once the starters sat, it became a showcase for depth. Minnesota went to their bench unit, featuring Bones Hyland, Terrence Shannon Jr., Johnny Juzang, and rookie Joan Barry. And instead of slowing down, the energy stayed sky high. Hyland attacked relentlessly, hitting pull-up threes and pushing transition. Shannon and Juzang knocked down open looks. Behringer showed poise beyond his years, spacing the floor and cutting at the right times. That second unit didn't just hold the lead, it extended it. It's rare to see that in preseason, especially when your stars are resting, but that's exactly what impressed head coach Chris Finch the most. The system worked no matter who was on the floor. To Denver's credit, they tried to rally in the third quarter. Julian Strawther came off the bench firing, hitting a few smooth jumpers. Peyton Watson added energy, and Yalin Pickett played controlled, solid minutes at point guard. The Nuggets even closed the gap briefly, making it a 6-point game midway through the third. But Minnesota's bench responded every time. Their ball movement stayed sharp. Their spacing stayed disciplined, and every time Denver looked ready to flip the momentum, someone from the Wolves hit a timely shot. By the fourth quarter, the game slowed, the benches cleared, and the Timberwolves coasted to a comfortable win. When you look at the box score, both teams shot similar percentages overall. The difference came down to pace, assists, and shot quality. Minnesota played faster, got better looks, and made their threes count. DiVincenzo finished with 6 assists in limited time. McDaniels and Reid were perfect from beyond the arc. Gobert anchored the defense early. Meanwhile, Denver's defense allowed too many open looks, and their second unit couldn't find enough rhythm to mount a full comeback. And that's the story of preseason basketball: rhythm versus rust. Now, it is just preseason, so context matters. But what stood out about Minnesota's performance wasn't just the win, it was the style. They looked confident, connected, and prepared. Their offense flowed even without their best players. Their defense communicated early. And most importantly, the young guys looked ready to compete for real minutes. This team has been building something for years now, and you can feel the shift. Anthony Edwards has blossomed into a superstar. Rudy Gobert remains one of the best rim protectors in basketball. And now, the supporting cast looks deeper than ever. Players like DiVincenzo, Reed, and McDaniels give Minnesota real versatility. They can play big, they can play fast, and they can finally stretch the floor around their core pieces. For the Nuggets, this loss is not cause for panic, but it is a reminder. Yes, Jokic is still Jokic. Yes, Jamal Murray can still take over any game. But when the defending champions look this flat, even in preseason, it highlights one thing. Hunger. Denver is the hunted now. Every team is coming after them, even in meaningless games. And that means they can't afford to coast, especially when so many Western teams improved over the summer. Their depth looks solid on paper, with additions like Hardaway, Valanciunas, and Brown, but chemistry takes time. This game showed they are still figuring that part out. Zoom out for a second, and the message becomes clear. This preseason isn't just about who wins or loses, it's about who looks ready. And right now, Minnesota looks ready. A young team that pushed Denver in last year's playoffs just outplayed them again, even without its top scorers. That's not a coincidence. That's growth. If they can carry this chemistry into the regular season, they could easily climb into the top 4 in the West. Because behind Anthony Edwards, there's real structure, something the Wolves haven't had consistently in years. Another takeaway, Minnesota's young depth is quietly impressive. Rob Dillingham looked calm, running the point. His decision-making and change of pace stood out. Terrence Shannon Jr. brought that spark off the bench. Johnny Juzin played within the system and hit big shots. And Nez Reed continues to be one of the most underrated bench bigs in the entire league. His shooting, mobility, and touch make him the perfect fit next to Gobert or as a small ball 5. The more you watch this team, the more you realize they're not just talented, they're balanced. Every preseason game teaches something. For Denver, it's about urgency. For Minnesota, it's about trust in the system. You can tell Finch has been emphasizing tempo and ball sharing since camp started, even without their stars. Every player looked like they knew where to be and what the next pass should be. That's the kind of culture playoff teams build, and while one preseason win doesn't mean much on paper, the way the Timberwolves played says everything about where they're heading. So yes, it's preseason, but in the NBA, every pattern starts somewhere. Minnesota outplayed the defending champions with backups. They ran faster, moved smarter, and executed cleaner. Denver, meanwhile, looked like a team easing into shape, and they'll bounce back. But for the Wolves, this might just be the first glimpse of a deeper, more dangerous team taking shape behind the scenes. Because this wasn't about Anthony Edwards missing a game. It was about Minnesota proving they can still win without him, and that's the kind of confidence that changes a locker room. So, what do you think? Are the Timberwolves finally ready to make a serious run in the West, or was this just another preseason fluke? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you love NBA breakdowns like this, make sure to subscribe, because next, we're breaking down how Anthony Edwards has quietly turned into one of the most complete two-way stars in the league.